Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. I am Meaghan Ziemba, and today I have with me Kristina Harrington. Do you go by Kristina or Chris?
Chris, please.
Okay, Chris Harrington. And I just want to mention that if you are in the comments section today, please drop your name and let us know where you're chiming in from. And feel free to also join in the conversation or ask questions as we go about this episode. I like to have this as interactive as possible. But Chris, thank you so much for coming and joining me today. I've known you for quite some time now, and I just love your vibe. I love your energy. And every time I have a conversation with you, I learn something new. So I'm really excited about this episode. But you are the CEO and co-founder of GenAlpha Technologies. So can you provide us some background information about yourself and then what GenAlpha Technologies is?
Sure. Well, first, I just like to say that, yes, we have been friends and I'm honored to be a part of your show. I've been watching you and am just so inspired by the energy that you bring to industry. So all of
Thank you
it,
so
the
much.
marketing, the generational differences and the attraction of not just bringing women in, but also the younger generation in general, because we have a big gap to fill, and
Mhm.
we need people like you out there really ringing the bell and with the blowhorn and getting people excited about the industry. So I just love to see that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. GenAlpha Technologies, we are a digital commerce company for equipment manufacturers and aftermarket organizations. And, the reason why that's important and why that's our niche is because that's where I came from, that not just myself, but also the co-founders and many of the people that work on the GenAlpha team. We all walked in our customers' shoes at one point in time, selling and
Mhm.
servicing equipment. I
Okay.
personally came from the mining industry, so I spent many years with a large mining manufacturer here in Wisconsin, Bucyrus International. We were acquired by Caterpillar, but I had a really awesome career and opportunity to live and work in Canada. I traveled the world. I lived and worked in Brazil, in Peru. And then when I came back to the States, it was then that we decided to co-found GenAlpha. So that's a little bit about my background. I know we'll dive into details as we go.
Yeah, so I'm always interested in how women in the sector get involved in the sector because a lot of the times it's either by accident or, they knew someone in their family that was either an engineer or a manufacturer or a CNC machinist or a welder. How was your journey? Did you start out in high school wanting to do something in engineering, or was your pathway geared somewhere else?
Yeah. All I wanted to do in high school was play sports. So I have always been, I've taken lots of tests to understand myself better, and I'm definitely a physical kinesthetic for those people out there, which means I like to do things with my hands, which is
Mhm.
probably why I'm a natural athlete. So, no, I didn't think necessarily about manufacturing.
Mhm.
I have always kind of shared a story that manufacturing chose me first. When I was in high school, there was a local manufacturer here in Wisconsin that every end of a senior year, they chose one female and one male, and they called them the student athletes. So they rewarded student athletes in all of the high schools around the area, and they brought the female and the male from each school into their manufacturing facility and had a big dinner event where we got to bring our parents. And at that time, so, this is many years ago, Coach K was the speaker of that event. And I was a huge basketball fan. Coach K was the
Okay.
coach of Duke. And it was very exciting for me. It was a wonderful evening. I felt very honored. So when I actually joined the military, I was in the US Navy as a machinist mate. But before I left for boot camp, I had some time between school finishing and leaving for boot camp. So I went to this particular manufacturer and basically interviewed for a job. And I started in the warehouse and learned some basic warehousing skills at that time. Then I went off to the US Navy. When I came out of the Navy, I went back to the same manufacturer and looked for another position. So at that point, I was running factory equipment floor, equipment that ran on the factory floor. I did second shift, I did third shift, went to first shift, and I actually didn't go to school to get my degree until later. So I was a non-traditional student, finally entered Marquette University in my late 20s, finished in my early 30s, and then I joined the manufacturer of mining equipment. So really, it was the effort by a manufacturing company that opened me to the idea. And I like to share that story because it's so great for other manufacturers out there to hear this. When you
Yes.
bring students in, they may just get excited about the industry and you in particular. So that's my
Right.
story.
And the phrase that you use, I really like how you phrased it. You said the effort of the manufacturer is what got me into manufacturing, because I feel like some companies are still dragging their feet and looking for some sort of, magical solution to get the next generation workforce in there. And it really just is getting in front of the students, having a conversation with them, and seeing where their passions align with what you're doing. And sometimes you're not going to find those students, because sometimes students want to do other things, and that's okay. But at least you're putting your best foot forward and having the conversations with the actual students and getting them to learn more about you. I had a gentleman come in this past week in Beloit. So I'm in Wisconsin as well.
Yeah.
And we went to a Frito-Lay's manufacturing company, and they were telling us about some of the things that they were doing to actually reach out to some of the local students within a 50-mile radius. And some of the students were like, I had no idea these opportunities existed. Some of the students love the hands-on work. Other students were like, no, this is not for me. I don't want to. But at least they knew.
They learned.
Instead of like just having them go throughout high school, graduate, and then roaming around aimlessly. Like, that's how I felt like I was doing after the thing. But the other funny thing is when you were talking about how they were picking one girl and one boy, I immediately went to Hunger Games. Like, the picking one from each school, and I'm like, why does this sound familiar? Which
Yeah.
that's not what they were trying to do. So that's a great story. And yeah, I think more manufacturers need to be proactive in getting in front of the students, especially in their local communities. I do want to shout out to some people who are already commenting here, and I think some or most of them. We have Angela. Thank you, Angela, for
Hi,
joining us.
Angela.
And then we have Ingor. I
Ingor.
just I actually just talked to her this morning on her live, so
Oh,
that was pretty fun. And then we have Dawn. Hi, it's Dawn.
hi, Dawn.
She is so sweet. I have met her a couple of times, and she is a very eager student to learn. And
Oh,
so I really hope she comes into engineering and manufacturing. She's doing great so far that I'm hearing. So I hope that progress is still going for her. She's absolutely wonderful. And
wonderful.
then we got some networking going on. We have Rihanna. Thank you for coming. Yep, double dose of Meaghan today. Yes, you do. And then we also have Courtney Fernandez from Automation Ladies. She's from California, saying hi from Arizona today. I'm jealous because both those states are warmer than what we're having right now.
Yes, we're gonna have 6 to 9 inches of snow tonight. So
Ugh,
yay for Arizona. We love
yeah,
you right now.
right. And then we have Hank, hi from St. John's, Newfoundland, where I am now here until Sunday due to snowstorm flight delays. Boo. Yes, we know how that is, Hank. Hank has his two daughters that tune in weekly too. They're called the Junior Board of Directors. So if you ever see Hank, make sure you shout out to them as well too, because they saw a lot of welding stories, and they every store that we have on here, they ask him if they can teach them something, and he just shared a photo of one of his daughters actually welding something.
Oh, so cool.
It's super, super cool.
Good job, Hank.
So right. So with GenAlpha Technologies, I know you're the CEO and founder, and I was part of I told you this before we went live. I was part of a conversation with Lauren Liddell. We spoke to some community college students who were in a CNC program. Brian Warren is the one that was their teacher, and he connected us to the students. But one of the students asked, what sort of skill sets do we need that manufacturers are looking for? So my question to you in terms of a CEO position, what are your skill sets that make you successful at that top level position for a company?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you the skill sets that I think are important. I don't know if I'm always ready to say that they're necessarily my skill sets because I'm always working harder to be better.
Mhm.
But I think listening is a critical skill set for any person that would like to be a leader and move up in their company and have an opportunity to be here one day. I mean, I just shared the story that I've worked in the warehouse, right? I was in the US Navy. I never imagined I would be a CEO of an organization until much later in my life. And then I was having a career. And, simply to go back to listening, I find that in order to bring forward the best ideas for an organization, you can't just be um, focused on your thoughts about things. You have to be listening to the advice, the information, the ideas of others, and you have to find a way to collaborate and bring all of that together. So, and there are so many reasons why being a good listener is important. I often tell people that the I'm really working for them. When we bring people into our organization, we're bringing them because they have a skill set and a talent and the ability to do the job for the open requisition that is available, the job opportunity that exists. And my
Mhm.
job is to ensure that they have everything that they need to be successful. So I need to be listening to them and responding to their needs because often I don't have the skills that each individual brings into the organization. So I have to listen and learn and collaborate across the organization to get things accomplished. And that goes external to the organization as well. We have to listen to our customers, to those that matter, and to those that ultimately are going to ensure that we have success in our organization. So listening is a real critical one. I think that um, I always like to say that I was born with fire under my ass. I'm just constantly moving, right? And it's easy to identify those people that just can't, they just want to keep going. I can
Yeah.
get bored very easily. So I I think that is also a skill for leaders is that you're continually striving to be better and to
Mhm.
innovate and do things differently. Differently in a way that is going to be rewarded by either your employees or your companies because there's a new level of satisfaction. So I'm just continually having the desire to improve the experience for my customers, their customers, and employees. So, those are some of the things that just come to mind. I do think you have to work hard. You got to be willing to get up early and sometimes stay late. And, people might not always like to hear that. We talk a lot about balance. And I think, rest time is important. But again, if you're going to be a leader of an organization, you have to be ready to work, right? You got to
Yeah.
roll up your sleeves when it's time. Sometimes 5 things will come in all at once, and we have to be able to respond to them. And especially at the leadership level, you have to be able to respond. You have
Yeah.
to think about the security of your employees, the safety of your customers, and all of those things. So it's really important that you're never just willing to work certain hours. You're just really ready to work when you need to and take the breaks when you need to reset and regroup as well. And then I think it's really important to be a continuous learner.
Yeah.
I will confess, again, I told you all I ever thought about was sports. And if really given the chance one day, that's maybe all I'll ever think about again, because I just love to watch sports. I like to be a part of sports. But it was early in my 30s. Again, a manufacturing company invested in training for me. And one of the things that this leader, and then somebody who became a mentor of mine, told me is that you needed to keep working on yourself as hard as you're working on your job or whatever success or goal that you want. And one of the ways to do that was to read books. And so I started reading in my 30s. Again, hate to admit that it started so late for me, but I used to say that I lived in the self-help section of the bookstore. I think they've renamed that today, so it doesn't say self-help anymore. But, I have read biographies and autobiographies, and I've read informational books to just keep teaching me new ways to think about things. So I think those are some real important things.
But I think that's one common thing about most leaders that I've talked to, in terms of like, well, some of them are on audiobooks now because they don't like
Yep.
to do the physical reading. But that's one thing that I've noticed among the great leaders that I've met and had conversations with, is they're always willing to learn. They admit that they don't know everything,
Yes.
and they love those types of books. They look into documentaries. They read a lot of books on history and how things used to be done, because that still affects the way how we do things today and how things will be done in the future. So it's just interesting to see that common denominator among all of the great leaders. And I like the fact too that you brought up collaboration with your team. You really need to actively listen to what people are saying so that you can find a common ground, learn from one another. And then that's a great way, like you said, to help your customers as well too. You have to actively listen to them, and not listen so much to respond, but like really listen to problem solve and see where those gaps are that you can fill. So I'm glad that you brought all of that up. It's International History Month, March is, and we had March 8th as the Women's History Day. So my next question for you is, like, during your time through this journey of yours, who have been or who has been the main inspiration in your life um, to do your absolute best? Like, is there one woman in particular that you've looked up to, or maybe there's more than one? Who would they be?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to women, I've had two very special women in my life, and they were my grandmothers, and they were just amazing. I think they taught me how to love, and they were very, very simple women who didn't have as much, but I think that I'm able to appreciate so much of what I have because of the background that they had. And I know that if you just think about your ancestors and how you climb on their shoulders, they have lifted me so high. So definitely they were not in manufacturing or anything like that, but my grandmother set the foundation for sure.
That's really cool. And I know that you on the side, and I want to come visit you. You have a farm with your
Yes.
wife. So
Yes.
can you talk about more of that? Because I didn't know that about you until you shared a video on LinkedIn, and I was just like, this is really cool. And most of it was on your wife too, because she's a chef, correct?
That's right. Yeah, so Polly and I met in Brazil. She's a Brazilian. I was living and working there with the manufacturer for mining equipment. And um, when we moved from Brazil to Peru,
Hmm.
she was on an international visa, so she couldn't work or anything. So she decided to go to school at Le Cordon Bleu. which is a very famous French cooking school. For those that might not have heard of Le Cordon Bleu, it's a very, very good school. And Polly studied there while we were living and I was working in Peru. We were there for 2 years, and she got her international chef certificate. So after we lived in Peru, that's when we moved back to Wisconsin. And, we both, so one of my grandmothers had a garden all my life. I used to travel up north and I would spend my summers with my grandma and grandfather. And I would, simply go into the garden, take, pull an onion, peel it right there in the garden and eat an onion like an apple. But I ate all of the harvest from the garden when I was a little girl, but I wasn't really able to be there when they were planting and then when they were canning and doing all of the other things. But I always had this dream to have something of my own. And Polly, living in Brazil, she was raised by a family who had chickens and other animals. And of course, in Brazil, there's fruit trees and everything is available in nature. So we both had this unique dream to have something here. So I always call it my little side hustle here is 2 girls and a farm. We're on 5.5 acres. We moved here just over 6 years ago. When we got here, there was nothing except lots of weeds and a big fenced in area. And we just started planting. We've planted over 60 fruit trees here. Every summer, we plant a very large garden, which we share with the community. And then Polly's a personal chef. So the food goes into feeding the families that she cooks for each week. We do share our harvest with the community. And, basically it's just an honor system. They come to our farm stand, and if they're interested in something, they just drop the money in the box and take the harvest. We've got chickens and ducks. We do bees for honey. So
That's
it's just,
awesome.
it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I always like to say that I have 3 pieces of equipment here. I've got a lawnmower, I've got a tractor, I've got a UTV. And so when it comes back to GenAlpha and GenAlpha Technologies and the types of solutions we help on the digital side for equipment manufacturers, I'm kind of a customer on the farm. So, because I have to repair these things, they have to be ready and available when it's time to cut the grass or when it's time to plant the garden. Things have to be available. So I'm really living the experience of these manufacturing customers as well.
That's really cool. I don't know if I have a green thumb or not. I've always wanted a garden, but it's just never happened. I definitely want to try to own chickens just because we were in Menards, did not know they sold chickens, and my sons caught eye of them and they were like, "Can we get those?" And I'm like, you caught me on a good day because I'm thinking, yes, I want to try that, but I've never like done anything like that big. So I think I'm gonna start small with the garden first and then do the
Yeah.
chickens. How does doing something like that help you with your everyday job? Like, does it help with like stress, or do you take some skills? Do you use it as downtime to like clear your head? Because I know with like running your own show, um, for me, my head has gotten really, really cluttered, and I just need to take time away from everyone so that I can sit in a quiet space and just organize my thoughts, whether that's putting them on my note in my iPhone or on my journal. Like I've been getting better at doing that because there would be days where I was up to like 1 in the morning because my brain just wouldn't shut off. How does the farming help you with your everyday life?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. Um, Yeah, I mean, from a stress relief, it's huge. I can get my hands dirty in the garden, and there's something about having the fresh dirt in your hands, or, feeding the chickens every morning and giving them water and just being around the life. There just is something special. But when you plant a
Mhm.
seed and you water it and it grows, and then you get to eat the thing that you've grown, there's just something so magical about that process. And it does take you out of the environment that you're in. And I think there's just beauty that's different when you cultivate the land and you get to, walk in the areas that you cultivated. There is just the reward. I don't even know if I can articulate it fully, but it's huge stress relief. I will tell you that when I water the garden in the summertime, that's a great time to listen to podcasts or have music on. There's frequently times I'm dancing in the garden with the water hose and just enjoying. So it forces me to have downtime, get away from the screen time and be doing something different with my hands. And I do appreciate that those forced opportunities that maybe I wouldn't be taking if I didn't have this available to me.
I just toured a school that's doing like the indoor gardening. It's another name for it. It's like hydro something.
Oh, hydroponics.
Yep, they're doing that. And I just thought that was really fascinating because I think it was a 6th grade class. I think teaching kids how to be self-sustainable is really important too, because we just have so much waste in processed foods. And I think people are starting to understand that that's probably not the best thing, but I just thought it was cool.
We find that teaching kids is obviously that's the future. I think when kids get dirty and they get to plant their own food and they get to eat the food that they planted, it's incredibly rewarding. At the farm here, we do composting. We have 4 very large compost bins that we rotate through. We have 6 water collection areas. So we collect water and then we reuse the water. So we are trying to use the land very responsibly as well.
That's awesome. Inger was like, she commented before on your work comment. Yes, Kristina, be ready to work. We also have Whitney who just joined us from Sugarland, Texas. They're all networking in the comments. Inger says, I just love what you and your wife are doing with your farm, Kristina. I really want to come visit and hang out with you guys because it's beautiful land. Hank said I too have a small farm. The junior board of directors love helping in it. I need to meet his daughters. They're like the greatest things ever. And then we have Catherine. Hi, Catherine. From one hobby farmist to another, we have 30 acres, 50 chickens, 5 goats, 100 greenhouses.
Yeah.
Wow.
We need to visit Catherine too. We have 50 chickens. We have that in common. And
we gotta do like a farm road trip to everybody's farm, and then I'll eat all the food. You can control more when you grow in the industry. Yep, absolutely. Yes. And then we have Rhiannon. Downtime is when the innovative thoughts happen. It's so important. Yep, that's true. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
So another thing that you're part of is Manufacturing Masters, which I think is just a great platform. Darren and Vince are just amazing people, and now Allison is also getting more involved with their newest podcast that's coming out for that series, which is awesome. But Vince is that man is so intelligent, and I've learned so much from him. But what were some of the things that you talked about on there? And if those tuning in, if you're not familiar with sorry, I almost said my own show. If you're not familiar with Manufacturing Masters, just Google that and check it out. It's a great platform. It has a variety of experts within different industries talking about business development, procurement, maintenance, marketing, and then Kristina was on there. So can you kind of break down what your series was about and some of the questions that you were answering through your video series?
Yeah. So thanks for mentioning Manufacturing Masters. And I will just echo everything you said. People need to check it out. Darren and Vince have created a resource that frankly wasn't available when I was starting out in manufacturing. And I know it would have been a tremendous support for me, particularly in my early days when many of, the lingo and everything was so new to me. And you just didn't have resources like that. Small, short videos that could be watched during lunchtime, or if you just had a new problem. Maybe it's a supply chain problem. I know so many people are facing supply chain challenges.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of videos with a lot of different experts out there on that. But for my area, I was focused on the aftermarket and aftermarket sales. So for those
Mm-hmm.
that might be listening today, when a piece of machinery or a large piece of equipment leaves the factory, often that piece of equipment has a useful life. It might be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but over that useful life, the life in which it's producing whatever it's meant to produce, whether that's manufacturing widgets inside on a factory floor, whether it's a backhoe in a construction project, whether it's a large uh, mining piece of equipment that is hauling waste or other products. All of these equipment over their useful life have maintenance and repair needs. So
Mm-hmm.
what I was helping manufacturers is how to improve the aftermarket side of the business, whether it be grow revenue, improve the customer experience, um, how to capture data so that when customers call you, that data can be easily available to them. So it was really about improving the experience for customers on the after sales side, which ultimately will improve your revenue. It will improve
Mm-hmm.
your customer loyalty and will ensure that customers want to buy that next piece of machinery or piece of equipment from you because you took such good care of them when they owned the first one. So that was the idea. I had a lot of fun doing it. I know I was really nervous when they originally called me, and I was like, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I had so much fun doing it. I'm so glad I did.
I had the same kind of reservations. Like I was just like, I'm a technical writer. Yeah, sure, I'm an expert in that. And they're like, well, no, we want to hear more about how you're recruiting the next generation. And I was like, I just started this video thing, like not to, because they called me right after I started Maven, so I wasn't that far into the journey yet. So it was really interesting, and Darren was really helpful too. Like he had a lot of great advice
Mm-hmm.
for me that he didn't charge me for, which I really appreciated because he probably charges people for that kind of advice. But yeah, for those of you tuning in, make sure you go check that out because it's a great platform and there's a lot of people on there already that we all know being connected with one another, and it's just really helpful and it's very well done.
Yeah. And stay
The
tuned for
other
the podcast because I think it's coming out next month. I
Yeah,
just recorded with Allison yesterday, so
yay,
so I know it's coming out soon.
I recorded with her as well, and she's another fantastic human being. Like
Yeah.
she just has such an edge to her, like a good
Yeah.
edge,
Yeah.
and she's a rock star. The other thing that you do is you're a co-host for a broadcast for manufacturers,
Yes.
and I like how you spelled it out. And then your thumbnail image is the silhouettes of women on a brick wall. So can you uh, take us through that journey on how that got started and who your co-hosts are and some of the topics you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, simply put, it's three broads talking about manufacturing, right? So that's where the broadcast, wink, wink on the broad. Um, and, we originally got together and recorded 3 podcasts. So I do the show with Lori Hybe and Erin Courtney, just 2 wonderful women. And of course, Meaghan, you were on our show. Thank you so much. We were honored to have you on our show as well. So a broadcast for manufacturers is on any one of your podcast platforms, wherever you listen, so you can catch us there. But we've loaded the first 3. So we did 3, and we were kind of talking about this concept of co-opetition because Erin, Lori, and I, sometimes you could consider us in a similar space. And
Hmm.
maybe at certain points we would be competing, but often we're not competing and we could help each other. So we decided to explore the concept of co-opetition over 3 episodes. And we had so much fun doing it that we're like, you know what? people are hungry for stories that include women, that touch the manufacturing industry, where we can talk about some of the challenges that manufacturers are changing or facing, excuse me, or things that they want to improve on, or things that aren't often talked about, but maybe should be talked about. And we just wanted to create a space for that. So all of us we're located in Wisconsin. I think Kurt Anderson called us the Whiskey Women of Wisconsin. And, we have all these, the different names or the Wild Women of Wisconsin. I think he called us the Wild Women of Wisconsin. We called us the Whiskey Women of Wisconsin. So yeah, we're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of great conversations. If anybody's interested in coming on the show and talking about their story, or how they help manufacturers, or how they've overcome some challenge in manufacturing, we'd love to have you as a guest.
That's awesome. I like Whiskey Women of Wisconsin.
I do too.
That's my favorite. I'd pick that one over anything.
We like old fashions. We're from Wisconsin, so we like our old fashions.
So we're getting close to the end of see, you said old fashions, and those are too sweet for me. Those are way too sweet for me.
But then you have to modify. And many people in Wisconsin will have a brandy old fashioned, but it just so happens that the three of us like a whiskey old fashioned. So here's the thing. Next time when you come to the farm, I'll make you an old fashioned. I'll make sure it's not too sweet.
Okay. Because usually I get weird looks when I get my drink. I don't drink very often, but I'm very particular about like the type of beer I drink. Like I like dark beers more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't like vodka because that just doesn't make me a happy person when I drink it ever. And then I don't like IPA beers. A lot of people seem to like that, but I like whiskey. I just don't drink Coke, so I don't ever do that. Or soda. Sorry, I say Coke for everything, but soda. So usually when I go somewhere to get a drink, I'll ask for my whiskey neat, and a bunch of people always look at me like, "You're gonna shoot that?" I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna shoot it like a shot. I'm gonna sip on it. That's what you do."
Yeah.
And people just think it's crazy that I don't put any ice in it or anything, but I just gotten used to drinking it neat.
You like what you like. I have to tell you though, when I look at you, you don't look old enough to drink. So it's so keep staying young, and you just
I'm actually turning 40 in July.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. I blame my daughter. I think me having her at a young age is what kept me young, because we just kind of grew up together. So I tell her she's the one that keeps me young, because I got to keep up with her.
Well, it really wasn't the mindset or anything else. It's just that you look very young. So keep that up. Whatever your regimen is, keep it up.
It's drinking whiskey neat. That's what it is.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep doing that then too.
So, okay, we gotta schedule time for me to come to your farm, drink a whiskey old fashioned, and then talk manufacturing. But we are coming up on time, Kristina. So one of the last questions I like to ask people when they're on my show is, if you had a big ask for our audience, what would that big ask be for them?
Oh boy. Keep promoting manufacturing. This is an industry. I was just at ConExpo ConAg in Vegas last week, and I think it was the largest ever ConExpo ConAg. There were so many exhibitors. There were over 150,000 attendees. The industry is a community, and it's beautiful. I will tell you that these are the best people on earth to work with, to work for. And there's so much opportunity, whether you want to work with your hands, or you're a financial analyst and want to sit at a computer and analyze information and give your company insights. There are a tremendous amount of opportunities. And I think we have to turn whatever reputation manufacturing has had for all these years, it's us within it that have to continue to promote it, so that younger generation, and even any generation, thinks about taking their skills and bringing it over into the manufacturing and the broader industry environment, right? There are
Mhm.
manufacturing companies, and then there are people who work with the manufactured products, who
Mhm.
help dig, build, and create all the things that we use to make the world go round. So I
Yeah.
would say, please just keep promoting industry. If there's anything that I love to do, it's to be an ambassador for this space.
Yeah. And I think a good thing to point out too is it's not just that we have to get the next generation exposed to it, but we also have to get the current generations
That's
excited
right.
about it as well and figure out ways of retaining current employees, whether that's upskilling or investing in them in some other way, if it's like childcare or flex schedules.
Yes.
How can we keep the momentum going and retain those current workers as well? Whitney said, great takeaway, Kristina. And then she also, oop, it didn't pop up. She also said, whoop, I love working with Allison DeFord. I do too. She's awesome. Well, Kristina, this has been so great and so fun. And again, I just appreciate everything that you're doing. I think you're one of the more vocal voices in manufacturing, and you have a lot of fun energy, which I think we need as well too, because one of the misconceptions about this sector is that it's boring, dark, dull, and
Right.
dangerous, but there's a lot of fun personalities involved. And I think if we can show the next generation that fun vibe and energy, they'll be more interested in coming into the sector. So if people have any more questions for you personally, or want to ask you more about GenAlpha Technologies, where should they go and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me, Kristina Harrington, on LinkedIn. And GenAlpha, you can look for us at genalpha.com. And thank you, Meaghan. Like I said earlier, it's an honor to be here with you. I love the work that you're doing. It's such a joy to be on your show, and I appreciate your comments as well.
Thank you so much, Christina. I appreciate it. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining in on the comments. Be sure to tune in next week. We have another great episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. It's Friday. That means it's the weekend. So go have a fun weekend. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.